Jujutsu Kaisen in the last couple of years has been able to dominate Shonen Jump in terms of sales and popularity, and now it's even getting its own console arena brawler, which is usually the medal of honor in the Shonen Jump magazine. And to say that these accolades aren't deserved would honestly be an understatement, as Jujutsu Kaisen has been able to be a really fascinating series with many themes and, in my opinion, the most enjoyable cast of characters I've seen in a while. So, as I've been making tons of video on Jujutsu Kaisen for a little bit, it's allowed me to wonder, how exactly does Jujutsu Kaisen manage to always keep a huge portion of its audience entertained no matter what's going on? What's the secret behind the success of such a series? And recently, I've come to the conclusion, or at least what I think it is. But before I get into that, I have to point out that only 2.7% of my viewers are subscribed. If you enjoy the content, if you like what you see here, feel free to subscribe, and with that, let's get into the video. Delayed gratification. For those unaware, delayed gratification is defined as the ability to delay an impulse for an immediate reward in order to receive a much better reward later on. For example, when someone goes to the gym for 6 months and sees their body slowly transform into the more fit shape they've always wanted it to be, it's an amazing feeling. Or if that person started a business that didn't truly show any results for the first year, and it's now just starting to bring in great revenue due to the amount of constant and consistent work they've put in, they tend to feel very proud of themselves and have a ton of results to show for it. Those are just a few of many examples of delayed gratification and how you can apply it to your normal life. Simply put, the longer you wait and the harder you work for something of substance, the more satisfying it feels to finally obtain it. Some may not understand how this concept has been applied to the series, so allow me to explain. The most recent application, and in my opinion the best in the series so far, although I'm positive there will be better, is going to be Gojo vs Sukuna. We're introduced to both of these characters very early in the series, and how are we introduced to them? A weakened Sukuna, who is renowned as the king of curses, fighting against Gojo, who is quote unquote the strongest sorcerer. And Gojo lives up to this title by assuring his confidence in surviving an encounter against Sukuna, and going on to completely toy with and decimate him. As we move a little bit ahead in the story, Gojo asks Yuji about his symbiotic relationship with Sukuna, this prompting Sukuna to come out and tell Gojo that when he gets his full power back, he will be the first person that he kills, setting up the future bout between Gojo and Sukuna. Naturally, anybody reading the series around chapter 3 would have no idea of how big of a deal this fight would truly be. Gojo then gives us the lore behind the legend of Sukuna, and a hint at how strong Sukuna truly is. As Sukuna was said to be a human who completely dominated the golden age of sorcery, that is the Heian era, being said to be so powerful that his own remains couldn't be erased by the strongest sorcerers. Yuji is then possessed by the viewer, and he asks, if Sukuna is so powerful, would he be able to defeat Gojo? And Gojo then states, Katsa. The viewer isn't sure what to believe of this at the moment. However, as the series goes on, we see insane displays of both Gojo and Sukuna's power. Feats that so clearly put them above the rest of the cast. Endless praise from both heroes and villains toward Gojo and Sukuna of their power and how undefeatable they seem. Endless debates across the internet over who is truly stronger at the peak of their powers due to all of these factors. The fight between these two titans was built up over the course of 4 years, and 219 chapters later, we're finally here. These two untouchable titans are now at their peaks and haven't even been relatively scratched by any of the cast until now. As these two deities finally have their bout, it lives up to its expectations, feeling as if it's the most insane and enjoyable fight in the series so far. And although this fight hasn't been concluded as of chapter 231, I'm absolutely sure that it's already in most people's top 3. This works as an example of delayed gratification, because what Gege Akutami did was set up this fight all the way in the beginning of the series. And by building up both Gojo and Sukuna as characters and giving us hints of their true power throughout the series, the readers could do nothing but invest their time and play out the fight in their head until it inevitably happened. If we got Sukuna vs Gojo at chapter 50 as some typical send-off to the protagonist teacher, it would not hit as hard as it does right now. Let's bring up another example of delayed gratification, in the usage of our protagonist, Yuji Itadori. And as we know, Yuji Itadori has many unexplored parts of his character, and after the Shibuya incident, we don't really see him in action as much as we used to. But this is why he's become such an interesting and captivating character whenever we do see him in action or not. In the past 100 chapters, we've only gotten to see him fight 4 times, and the first 3 fights happening within the first 30 chapters of this time span. And something else to point out is that Yuji in these fights wasn't as serious or committed as he was against Mahito at the peak of the Shibuya incident, and obviously not. He's still traumatized and holding on to the events of the previous arc. So when we finally see that serious and all-out Yuji return, it's after going through the rest of the cast and what they're doing with the events of the Culling game. And to lay out the foundation of this return, Sukuna takes over Yuji's body and rips out one of Yuji's fingers, imbuing it with all of his own cursed energy. He then grabs Megami's face and forces him to consume the finger, making Megami his new host and now possessing him. We see Yuji regain consciousness and he's completely in shock, and he's sent flying through buildings by Sukuna and knocked out very briefly. We eventually see Yuji get back up, and as we know, Sukuna has done nothing but torment Yuji throughout the entire series, even killing him in one instance. And due to this, Yuji has come to hate Sukuna, but the possession of his best friend was another level of his violations towards Yuji. In chapter 214, we see Yuji go all out for the first time in over 80 chapters. And he's not going all out against any old regular person, he's going all out against Sukuna. This chapter has one of the most iconic fights and moments in the entire series, with Yuji walking through Sukuna's barrages of slashes. This fight was a true delight, and the reader was rewarded with such a huge enjoyment of this fight because we naturally had to wait a very long time to see Yuji go all out again at this point. But some can say, this is all just build up to moments. How does Gege manage to keep the series so entertaining throughout the entire 200 plus chapters we've been reading? And the answer to that is the same. If you really examine the series, Gege does this with almost every single character we've seen. We haven't seen Yuta since the one-shot, and he's mentioned during Shibuya. So once the Shibuya incident is complete, it's the perfect time for Yuta to reappear into the story and take the spotlight, meanwhile everybody else is on cooldown from the most climactic moment in the series. This allows Gege to keep the engagement of the viewer, meanwhile using Yuta to build up other characters such as Hakari and other plotlines such as Yuki defending Tengen or Maki going to the Zenin household. Gege also never gives us everything we want out of a character on their first appearance, so we can speculate and look forward to seeing them again. Even despite seeing Yuta fight 3 times in the past 100 chapters, we're still unsure of how his copy ability works or any details relating to his domain expansion. And as we see later on, with Hakari, we don't even get to learn anything about his powers, and we still haven't learned about his technique. And in terms of the narrative, when we first meet Hakari, he beats up Yuji, and then he solidifies that he will fight Hajime Kashimo in the future, which is something that most readers were looking forward to. This formula that Gege Akutami has implemented into his story is insanely masterful, and it goes through multiple characters, keeping us engaged no matter who's on the screen because we'll always be interested in the character who's around after waiting so long to see them, meanwhile waiting for the future plot points of other characters to be touched upon. Why do you think Todo and Nobara just haven't come back in a long time, or why we haven't heard from them? I believe that Akutami wants you to acknowledge how long they've been gone, and for you to build up their inevitable return in your own head, meanwhile processing everything else that's currently going on in the story, keeping it engaging. And we're witnessing the most important and most built-up battle in the series, yet a strong amount of people are still thinking about Kenjaku and how he'll pop up in any chapter to interrupt it, or even Kashimo going up next to fight Sukuna. And why do you think that is? Gege handled his pacing with both of these characters very well, giving us bits and pieces of their character in regards to their motives, yet not letting them completely execute on them for reasons that are unknown as of now, which leaves the reader scratching their heads and predicting when either one will act, although I'm sure we'll find out later. This is also why Yuji's family, origin, and curse technique is so damn interesting, and why everybody loses their mind whenever we get the slightest hint at any information regarding our protagonist, because we know a decent amount about him, but for 230 plus chapters, not really. We're in a constant chokehold with Yuji especially, and I'm sure that Jujutsu Kaisen will end very strongly due to this formulaic writing that can never be stale due to the amount of care and time that Gege has put into the cast. And the fact that Gege is able to juggle so many instances of this formula all at once in order to keep readers engaged no matter who's on the screen is why I as a reader have so much faith in his writing in the future of the series. All in all, Delayed gratification is what allows Jujutsu Kaisen's writing to stand out so well and let it be such a fun series to enjoy weekly or in batches. The readers are constantly rewarded with a pleasurable and satisfying reading experience due to having to wait such a long time for one character's resolution or standout moment while being focused on another character. This discipline is why whenever Luffy becomes the Pirate King, the internet will break. Or if Guts defeats Griffith, the internet will break. Because these are goals that have been hyped up and spread over 20 years of real life waiting. Anyways, I decided to make this video to make viewers gain interest towards the concept of delayed gratification, as in my opinion, it's genuinely life changing. But also just because I was wondering how Jujutsu Kaisen stands out so much in comparison to other series. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, have an amazing day, guys. Peace.